Good morning, New Vision Center. My name is Reverend Leslie Goodwin. I'm the associate minister here at MVC, part of your loving and engaged ministerial team. It's delightful to see you all today, and it's delightful to be here. I'm back after a couple weeks off with COVID, and I tested it for you. If you haven't had it yet, give this one a pass. It's not a great one, so we'll just skip it. Agreed? Fantastic. So we are in December, and every year, Reverend Karen and I look at each other. We're going on maybe 11 years of this conversation. We go, how is it December? How did that happen? Anybody else have that experience, right? We know it's coming. And yet every year it feels like, oh my gosh, here it is. And the calendar fills up and there's all of these wonderful, fun, awesome things to do, and shopping and parties and gatherings with beloveds and decorating things, whether you are celebrating Christmas or Hanukkah or Yule or New Year's Eve or Festivus for the rest of us. We got stuff to do and plan and package and decorate and eat, yes? And it's fun. And if you're anything like me, and I suspect a few of you are, we can use that hustle, bustle, busy, busy, go, go, go to distract us, to pull us away from our connection with self. And for every experience we've had of wonderful, joyous embracing of people that we love, we've had people from past experiences of that are no longer, for whatever reason, a part of our experience. Perhaps they have transitioned from this earthly plane. Perhaps they have just moved on to another way of living their life that no longer brings them into our circle. And then we have the ones that still are. Perhaps they have opinions about the way we live our lives, or dress, or talk, or go to church, or don't go to church, what we do for our job. We were supposed to be a lawyer like Uncle Jeff, and instead, maybe we're a minister now. Surprise. It can bring a lot up. And there are those among us who have a tendency to kind of dive into that busyness to hide from the feelings. Now, unfortunately, we're terrible at hide and seek as a species. We think we're hiding how we're feeling. Have you ever been with a friend who thinks they're hiding what they're feeling? Are they getting away with it? No. No, we can all tell. We can all tell. And it builds, and it builds, and it builds, and it builds, and it builds until you yell at someone about mashed potatoes. I once had a big fight with someone I was dating about the fact, this is a true story, that he washed a brownie pan. And he did it correctly, too. How dare he? That gentleman, what was he thinking? When we're ratcheted up like that, something is going to cause us to either blow or walk or quit being in the flow. So let's have a conversation today about this flash flood of feelings that can come forth from all of these areas of our life during the holiday months, so that when the ratcheting up begins, we have some tools ready, some science of mind tools that can help us move through and beyond in a way that is more in line with the selves we know ourselves to be. Yes? Beautiful. So this idea came about because I read a quote from Prabhas, who is a very famous Indian actor, a Bollywood actor. And as we know, wisdom comes from all places. I think I've also quoted Santana from up here before. I mean, smart is smart. It doesn't really matter who you are. And he said, a holiday is an opportunity to go within. And how many of us use our wild December calendars as an opportunity to absorb self-truth? I want you to notice that no hands are in the air, and we are a beautifully authentic, honest community. But we can. Now, in order to be brave enough to live as our true anchored, centered selves through something as busy as a December in North America, we have to be brave enough to feel our feelings. Why aren't we? What gets in the way there? I suspect that we're afraid we'll lose control. We're afraid if we let ourselves feel our annoyance at our second cousin for that time she stole her boyfriend in junior high, it's going to come flying out of us, right? That we'll get overwhelmed, we'll get swamped, we'll get stuck in it, we'll get so anchored in the yuck that we won't be able to pull our feet out of the mud and move forward. When actually the opposite is the truth. It's the attempt to stuff it down that keeps us stuck in the mud. I mean, think about it. Feel your feelings. Think about the natural bodily movement of that versus stuff it down. Which one keeps us stuck? Which one anchors us in? So I found this fact. I found it a few months ago, and it has been working me. I tell you what, this job works you. For all the good and all the not good of that. And it's a quote that came from Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, who is a neuroscientist out of Harvard. And we're all going to take a breath. This is what she said. When a person has a reaction to something in their environment, there's a 90-second chemical process that just happens in the body. After that, any remaining emotional response is just the person choosing to stay in that emotional loop. Oh, we're breathing, and we're breathing, and we're breathing. So what she's talking about there is a very specific thing. She's talking about the actual bodily feelings. So there's feelings, and that's what actually happens in the body temple, right? And then there's emotion, and emotion is what happens when we decide what the feeling meant and start to have a story about it. When the actual feeling comes up, the wave of anger, the wave of fear, the wave of tension, that actually, if we do two things, actually moves through us in 90 seconds. And the two things are this: let ourselves feel it and call it what it is, and only what it is. I am feeling angry. I am feeling tense. My stomach is upset. My heart just did the thunk thing. Do you guys have the thunk thing? I have the thunk thing. And then resist, this is step 2, resist the urge to decide what it meant from a story perspective. So, if you are like me, I'm so sorry, but if you are, it might look like this inside your brain. My dad just talked about my tattoos again. What am I feeling? What am I feeling in my body? My shoulders dropped, my head dropped. It feels like, oh, again. They're little birds. They're girly. I am not running a motorcycle club. I'm afraid of motorcycles. I'm so tired of being judged on stupid things that are stupid. And why does nobody understand me? Oh, this family is always something. Oh, I should just forget it. I should just leave. Just me, right? Yeah, okay, good. You're all better trained than that. What we can do, what we can choose to do, and first of all, we can acknowledge this is not an easy thing to do. And we can do our best to, Dad brought up my tattoos again. Oh, I'm feeling a little hurt and disappointed. I thought this conversation was complete. Okay. My shoulders have dropped. I felt my energy drop. There's some sadness there. I could tell myself a story about how this means he doesn't approve of me or appreciate me or think that I have the right to look the way I want to look, but I don't need to do that. He probably forgot that he's talked about my tattoos a bunch. Feel my feelings, let them move through. And in about 90 seconds, it's gone. Why does it go longer than 90 seconds? Because as I tell myself the story about how, fill in the blank thing, how so-and-so thought I should become a businesswoman and I'm a minister in a religion they don't understand, and boy, that can be confusing to my grandmother who's Catholic, right? As I tell myself that story again, because it's never the first time, what am I doing? I'm triggering the next 90-second wave. I'm starting to have feeling reactions to the story I'm telling. So there's wave after wave after wave after wave after wave. And that is what Dr. Jill was referring to when she maybe not quite so sensitively said, choosing to stay in the emotional loop. Neuroscientist, not minister. But she has a point. When we get ourselves going in the story, whether we're telling it to ourselves or going to report to the nearest person who will agree with us that that person's just a darn jerk and shouldn't have had that thing to say about my shoes, we're triggering the next 90-second loop. So we identify what's going on, mostly so that our brain can get the message that it's not a bear. Because our brain can't tell it's not a bear. We're wired to have a feeling and react like a tiger or a bear is going to eat our leg. Now, I don't love it when I get negative feedback. I'm sure that's just me too, right? It's not my favorite. But it's not a bear going to eat my leg. It's someone's comment I would prefer not to hear. That's a really different thing. And part of letting it only be 90 seconds is just saying, oh, I'm disappointed. Oh, my feelings were a bit hurt by that. Oh, I'm feeling angry, as opposed to a bear is eating my leg. And then we let it pass through without the need for a story. Why does it matter? Really, why does it matter that we let ourselves feel our feelings? Because we could just decide everyone in our family and all of our friends are idiots. I mean, we all know somebody who thinks that about the people in their life, right? God doesn't care if we think that. God doesn't have an opinion about our emotional state other than that we feel that it's life-affirming. Why does it matter? I think the biggest reason, there are lots of little reasons, but I think the biggest reason is because feelings are guideposts to move us toward what is the most expressive, the most positive, the most life-affirming for us. And we're all different. So our individual feelings are our connection to indwelling source, the divine inside, our way of checking in to say, okay, spirit in here, am I on the right track? And if we don't let ourselves feel it, we don't get that information. And with that information comes an invitation. An invitation on where we should move in our life in order to be able to focus on what matters, instead of these 90-second waves of upset piling into such a big story that we can't even find what matters in the giant pile. The invitation might call us to connect in with self, with the capital S self, the self that is in alignment with indwelling spirit. And that can look like spending some time in the quiet, spending some time in meditation. It might invite us to be connected with self differently in alignment with other beloveds in our life. That can look like sharing selectively. We all know that there are certain people in our life that are going to be better able to handle certain information about us, right? We can be self-protective in what gets shared with whom, simply for the possibility of more peace for ourselves. Everybody doesn't need to know everything. Everybody isn't entitled to an opinion on every single thing about us. Reminds me of Brene Brown and her 1 by 1 inch square of people who are in the arena with you. Those are the people that get to know everything. It might look like working on our boundary skills, taking breaks. I am a big fan of a nice walk, a nice brisk solo walk, right smash in the middle of a family event. Sometimes I need some quiet time. It might look like a call to connect with others. Now, if we reach inward and we find that the feelings are telling us that we're experiencing loneliness or a sense of a lack of belonging or lack of support, often what stands between us and that sense of belonging or support is picking up a phone or sending a text message and saying, hey, I'd love to see you in the next couple weeks. When are you available? Or if it's just the right person, I'm feeling a little lonely. Can you talk right now? One of the joys of being part of a community like this is that none of us are ever surprised to get a call or text like that. And we're delighted to step in and stand in that place of support and camaraderie for one another because we are revealing the power of love as a community intentionally, continually. When we feel that invitation and we allow ourselves to follow through on the invitation, because just knowing it isn't enough, right? We got to actually do it. Then our mind and our heart are clear enough that we can actually focus on what matters. If the turkey burns, it's fine. If the new toy given to the 3-year-old breaks, it's fine. It's fine. That's not what we're doing in the holidays. We're loving one another and self in the holidays. And I found this story that thank goodness someone made a video about, because I can't tell this story without sobbing. So we're going to let the video do it.
How some grandmothers don't give age-appropriate gifts. So this woman, Kim, her mother, gave really inappropriate gifts. Breakable, super fragile thing. So one Christmas, Kim's daughter gets a little tiny turtle. Beautiful, blown glass, green, the feet were kind of purple. She gives it to her daughter who's so young. And Kim's like, no, Mom. Grandmother's like, go ahead, let her put it on the tree. And she's like, she will break it. She will absolutely break it. And her mother's like, just let it break. We can put it back together. And girl hangs it on a branch low. Kim's freaking out, it's gonna break. And eventually, later on in the day, it did. And Kim's angry at her mother. Why would you give a gift this precious to a child? It's broken, it doesn't matter. So the next year, Nanny did not learn her lesson, and she brings over larger porcelain ornaments every Christmas now. Big, beautiful, precious ornaments. And every year, Kim knows it's coming. Eventually, what she does is she creates a different tree, a tree that nobody can touch, that you look at. It's a very special tree, but everyone's afraid of it, so nobody really does look at it. But it's Nanny's tree of all these big, precious ornaments. So then the first Christmas that Nanny's no longer with them, Kim's putting this tree together, separate from the family tree in the other room. Her private moment with the tree, delicately placing everything on there. Her daughter calls to her, who's now pretty much an adult, and Kim turns and knocks an ornament off the tree, a house. And she's irate, storms in the other room. Her daughter can tell something's wrong. She grabs dustpan, she goes in to pick up all the pieces. And inside of it is a little ribbon with a note written in her mother's handwriting. Kim, this was from your first ballet recital. You wore pink tights with purple hearts, and you'd never looked happier. Love, Mom. It dawns on her every year that her mother kept saying, it's gonna break, you'll see, they're gonna break. This entire time, these ornaments were some kind of lesson. Her mother was very cheeky. Kim reaches up and she takes another ornament, a globe, drops it. The porcelain breaks everywhere. Inside of it, another moment from her childhood and a memory. Kim starts grabbing all the ornaments off the trees and smashing them, crying, laughing. Her daughter comes in. Mom, thinking she's gone completely insane. Kim said this was all junk. It's what's inside that matters, and she smashes another, and in a wad of tissue, a little turtle that had been glued back together maybe 15 years ago with a note that said, Kim, it's gonna break, and how beautiful it can be when we put it back together. So that Christmas, her and her daughter, with glue and tape and whatever they had, did their best to put them back together. It looked a mess, but they hung them all on the family tree. Beautiful mosaic ornaments that meant something, even if they were junk.
I'm so glad I didn't have to tell that story. So this is the invitation as we walk our way into this complicated, rich, beautiful, heartbreaking time of the year. Connect with your feelings enough that you can know what matters and let the rest break. It's what's inside that counts. Let us take this into prayer. How good it is to know that there is one power, one presence, that we call by infinite names: life, God, sweet spirit, universal mind, the all good, the beloved one, that is indwelling all of life because it has created everything. And as we know that it indwells each of us. That still small voice of intuition that we hear is the voice of God within, just for us, always available. That these amazing bodies that we carry with hormones and chemicals and emotions and feelings are divine in their nature, created to lead us, to guide us to that which is life-affirming for us. And so we trust it. We trust that voice within to show us what is ours to know that it is divine to feel the feeling, and it is divine to breathe through the feeling. The invitation is divine, and the answering the invitation is just as precious, just as spiritual, just as real. And so whatever is on our hearts this day, we allow ourselves to be supported through prayer, through this service, through Wednesday's Blue Holiday service, through our ministers and our practitioners and our beloved fellow partners and members. Everything we need is right here. Grace has already been given, and it is good. And so we just are grateful to know the truth, and let it be as we say together, and so it is.